Welcome. My name is Elaine Chang. I'm the CEO of TaroWorks, and I'd like to welcome you all to our last TaroWorks webinar of the year. So as an introduction, at TaroWorks, our mission is to help organizations who are working with vulnerable populations so that they can provide impactful interventions through the use of our offline mobile field service app. So one of our goals is to empower everybody throughout these organizations, everyone from managers sitting in headquarters to the field agents or community workers who are potentially working in remote areas or places with inconsistent connectivity. But throughout, the theme is that they all need data so that they can do their job most effectively and make data-driven decisions. So a major theme of our work is really to connect the unconnected. And for us, unconnected users typically meant users who don't have access to consistent data connectivity, but as we'll see in this webinar, this could also mean users where technology isn't accessible because of disabilities or other impairments. So today we're really excited to share the story of how BRAC is using mobile technology to make their programs more inclusive for those with visual impairments and other impairments. And what's really exciting is that this is kind of both for participants in BRAC's programs, but also their agents in the field. So we at TaroWorks have had a long-standing relationship with BRAC through many different programs. We started working with them in 2016, and since then they've really sort of scaled their impact by expanding to other programs with their earlier successes, and throughout they've been really getting their hands into the data, really using it for decision making and scaling their impact. So it's a great story. We'll just be hearing one facet of all of these programs. Hopefully we'll get to do more in the future. But this webinar will kind of go through the story of BRAC's work, how we work with them to provide a more inclusive experience for their visually impaired mobile users, and hear about some of their results. So today we're excited to be joined by Najiat Chowdhury, who's the Manager of Business Intelligence Development with BRAC's Skills Development Program, or SDP, as you may hear it referred to later on. And she's based in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Before we get started, I wanted to go over a couple housekeeping notes. So firstly, everybody is on mute by default. If you do have a question, please either raise your hand, or there's a question box. You can type in your questions throughout the webinar. We'll take questions at the end, but if you have a question, so you don't forget it, just type it in. Or if you have an urgent question that needs clarification, feel free to type it in. The webinar is being moderated today by Gabriela, who can sort of pop in if there's an urgent question, so feel free to use that. And then finally, this session is being recorded, and we'll be emailing the recording to everybody who registered. You can find, outside of the email, you can also find recordings of this webinar and other webinars that we've done in the past featuring our clients on our TaroWorks YouTube channel. So feel free to check that out for other stories. Okay, before I turn it over to Najiat, I'll spend a few minutes to just give a little bit more context about TaroWorks, which is the underlying technology that she might be referencing throughout. So as background, TaroWorks is an offline mobile field services app that helps organizations scale their impact by allowing headquarters and field teams to share information more seamlessly. We've been deployed in over 150 organizations and projects in over 65 countries around the world. Technically speaking, there are two parts to TaroWorks. So on the back end is each client's own Salesforce.com instance. So that serves as the back end. That's where all the data is stored. That's where organizations can run their reporting and dashboards and manage their mobile users. There is also the TaroWorks app that sits in Salesforce that allows for building these the jobs and building out the mobile app. The other part, the corresponding part to our app, is the mobile app, the app that sits on the Android device, and that's in the hands of the mobile users, those people who are in the communities, potentially offline. That's their link to that that big source of data. Or field agents are able to look up information that has been assigned to them and also collect information even when they're offline. And when they have reception again, it all syncs back into Salesforce, and any new information from Salesforce gets synced back out. So it's a two-way data flow. And especially on the mobile app side, mobile users could be conducting fairly complex activities. So it is important for everything to work smoothly for mobile users, no matter their abilities. So, okay, that's a little overview of TaroWorks. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Najiat. I'll ask you some questions throughout, but firstly, Najiat, can you give a quick introduction of yourself?
Thank you, Elaine. I'm Najiat Chowdhury, currently working as a team lead for the Business Intelligence Development team in Skills Development Program of BRAC. Thanks for having me as a guest user. It's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for joining so late. Big kudos for that. We're really excited to hear your story. Okay, so I think for the next, to introduce the audience, can you just share more about BRAC as an organization?
Sure. So BRAC is an organization that strives to empower people and communities in situations of poverty, illiteracy, disease, and social injustice. BRAC's vision is a world free from forms of exploitation and discrimination, where everyone has the opportunity to realize their potential.
Great, thanks. Okay, so a little bit of background again is TaroWorks started working with specifically BRAC's Skills Development Program, or SDP, in 2016 to successfully track learners, their apprenticeship placements, and their outcomes. And because of its successes, this SDP team was asked to help BRAC International roll out a similar system implementation for their disability inclusive graduation program in Uganda. So can you go over what these two programs are and what the goals are?
Sure. So BRAC Skills Development Program is a program where we provide skills training to out-of-school adolescents and youth and place them in jobs. We have reached 500,000 adolescents and youth through different skills program initiatives. The job placement rate is more than 80%. Apart from service delivery, SDP also focuses on making structural changes through community engagement, motivating more girls and women to join skills training, and influencing people with disability to join the training and subsequent employment. So SDP has three modalities. One is apprenticeship, the second one is classroom-based training, and the third one is entrepreneurship. So in apprenticeship-based program, the model where we place two of our learners under each mastercraft person, where they take hands-on training for 6 months under their preferred trade. And once they complete the training and pass the skill test, they are placed into the job market. In classroom-based training, youth with an average educational background take a course that provides provides them practical skills training under a specific sector in our BRAC Institute of Skills Development. We have both offline and online scope of classroom-based learning. And in entrepreneurship, this model provides business knowledge and necessary skills regarding starting a new business or becoming an entrepreneur. These skills include sustainability, marketing, business knowledge, and competency, like financial linkage, where to get business products from, and these certain workplace criteria. So this is a short summary of what skills development program does. So the targeted approach after the COVID-19 has been the new poor and vulnerable youths and adolescents. And yeah, inclusion and decent work has always been very important to skills development program and overall BRAC. And we always maintain the data-driven decision-making culture. So yeah, that's it. And in Disability Inclusive Graduation Program, which is known as DIG, it's a program of BRAC International. And this DIG program was launched in 2017 to provide personalized support to people living in extreme poverty with disabilities, including, socioeconomic empowerment and resilience. The project also works to advance community-based advocacy to raise awareness on disability inclusion. The main objective of the disability inclusion graduation program was to place vulnerable households and people with disabilities on an upward trajectory out of ultra poor poverty. And another objective is to strengthen resilience through food security, increased health seeking behavior, financial access, livelihood development, and mentorship support. One of the main components of the program was to mainstream disability inclusion and increase the accountability and capacity of development partners.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so you mentioned a couple times already the data-driven approach. So BRAC has, I think, always been a leader in using data. And very early on in our working relationship, there was talk about using data for decision making and not just for reporting, which is really exciting. I think that's why TaroWorks has had such a good working relationship with you and BRAC. Can you share more about BRAC's approach to using data and why it's important?
Yeah, sure. So it's a long journey since now. It's since 2016, BRAC has been using TaroWorks as a data collection tool for their skills development program to help track their beneficiaries' performance during interventions. TaroWorks was used to create and administer mobile data collection surveys, digitalize the key elements of daily field management, and identify trends of roadblocks through data visualization dashboards within Salesforce. So our operations take the day-to-day decision making through the reports that are real-time generated in Salesforce through TaroWorks. So yeah.
Okay, thanks. So in addition to focusing on data culture, at BRAC, there's also a big priority on fostering inclusivity in the workplace. Can you explain to the audience why inclusivity is so important to BRAC?
Yeah, to foster inclusivity in the workplace and create more opportunities, BRAC created a process of matchmaking with the shop owners of their placements using the data from TaroWorks. This process includes placing their participants with disabilities with compatible employers to ensure a smaller dropout rate and increase opportunities. BRAC wants no one to leave behind. for any kind of disadvantage they have. So this also helps identify profiles that help to increase the retention of participants with disabilities. There is a stigma with people with people with disabilities in the workplace. So the main goal of BRAC's program is to ensure disabled learners are also placed.
Great. Yeah, and I think it's interesting also, I mentioned it earlier, but the fact that you're focusing on placing people with disabilities, but also employing them as well, including them in your staff. So sort of doubly impactful there. Okay, so then I think just as background, at that point, TaroWorks, we did not have a way for the for users with visual impairments to use TaroWorks smoothly. So at that point, BRAC had reached out to TaroWorks to see if there was a way to yeah, to include that functionality and make their programs more inclusive. So I guess I'd love to hear from you, Najiat. How are you using TaroWorks up to this point, and why did you choose to continue using TaroWorks and add on a feature as opposed to maybe finding another tool?
Okay, so let's answer these questions one by one. So the first question was how we are using TaroWorks. So let's start with the history. So when BRAC, uh, being one of the largest largest NGOs, tried to digitalize its paper-based record system to improve decision making and provide continuous improvement for its skills development program in Bangladesh, it hit a wall. SDP enables disadvantaged women and men to have better jobs by improving their skills, their income, and their workplaces. It focuses on apprenticeship and entrepreneurship-based interventions for the informal economy, enterprise development in the light engineering sector, and building a pool of skilled professionals for Bangladesh, increasingly capital-intensive formal sector. As of 2018, over 60,000 youth business owners and migrants have been reached, with the goal of reaching 500,000 over the next few years. So to achieve that scale, SDP needs to analyze their operations and results in a smart way to encourage continuous improvement of the program. BRAC had built other MIS systems, so the SDP team took those into consideration in building their solution, hoping to make it easier to aggregate, analyze, and act on large amount of collected field data. BRAC's technology for development team, which is known as T4D team from skills development program, had also previously tried several data collection, analysis, and decision-making approaches, including spreadsheets with macros. They discovered, however, that different versions of Excel in use by BRAC across the country created compatibility and performance issues. The SDP team eventually turned to TaroWorks mobile field services management app and its offline Salesforce.com CRM to power a pilot project for 15 branches. The goal was to see if the use of mobile digital tools could make data management more efficient and inform daily decisions to foster continuous improvement in operations. The new TaroWorks or Salesforce system was piloted for SDP skills training for advancing resources for the STAR model. STAR trains disadvantaged youth, especially women and people with disabilities, through on-the-job apprenticeships. The apprentices or learners are placed under a mastercraft person, whom we call MCP, who is an experienced shop owner or worker with a trade including tailoring, mobile phone servicing, refrigeration, aluminum fabrication and beauticians, etc. 15 branches were selected for the pilot, which was run by a network of 2 area managers, 6 district managers, and 15 program organizers. The frontline field staff member, each program organizer, is responsible for an average of 56 learners. The 15 pilot branches had 1741 learners and 721 masterclass persons. When it came time to assess whether the pilot was successful or not, T4D realized that it wasn't any particular indicator that proved success, but rather that all the participants were speaking up and offering ideas for new forms and new analysis. The system was on its way to being adopted and encouraging continuous improvement of operations. As a result, BRAC scaled the system from 15 to 141 branches overnight. And then these numbers have, but from now on till 2023, these numbers have reached 60 districts, 350 program organizers, 1.5 lakh learners, and 44,614 MCPs still today. So yeah, and the next question was why we continued using TaroWorks, right? And added that talkback feature, if I'm
Yeah,
not wrong.
that's right. I just wanted to sort of pause to say those are really incredible numbers of growth. Thanks for sharing. I don't think I knew that, so that's great. Yeah, so I think that's great background on SCP and your growth there. So yeah, I think going back to the question, which I kind of lumped together, but why did you continue using TaroWorks once you wanted to focus more on visually impaired users as well?
Okay, so yeah, so you see, it's the continuous improvement that we noticed while we were using TaroWorks, and by the time we saw that our field operations staff have started being confident about this system, and from time to time they started providing their requirements based on the mechanism which reflects their ownership through the process. Our operations and management team have been using evidence-based decisions through the real-time reports every day. The reason for implementing talkback feature, though, with TaroWorks was, as you know, inclusivity, as I already have mentioned, has always been one of the biggest motto for BRAC. When there was a program like disability inclusive vocational training and youth employment, and also like DIG, we wanted to include the staff with visual impairment who are competent, who are like completely competent for the position, but for the disadvantage they have, we didn't want this disadvantage to stand in their way as a barrier. So we figured out this talkback feature can work with TaroWorks, and this can include our staff having visual impairment for the position. As per the project's requirement, like when DIG program came to us, the project's requirements was TaroWorks added the features with the request, and we implemented an inclusive technological product for real-time data collection. We are continuously taking insights from our frontline staff and developing the report and dashboard as per their requirements. As the backend was developed on Salesforce, it was easy to customize the system, the survey and reporting based on the field need. The rapid delivery of field needs helps build the people's trust to use the product. In my last years of experience, I learned that the technology part is easy, but gaining people's trust to use the technological product or the technology adoption is complicated and needs heavy concentration. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into how you tackled that in a little bit. I think before we get into how it was rolled out, I do want to take a beat and talk about what TaroWorks built and the process. So BRAC did come to TaroWorks and to ask for a way to use the TaroWorks mobile app for those visually impaired users. So we at TaroWorks, our product team, work with the BRAC team very closely on collecting requirements with the ultimate goal of building it into our tool so that any TaroWorks users outside of BRAC as well can use it. So it is embedded in the actual download. So unfortunately, we had a little clip of how it works, but well, I think first, BRAC isn't able to kind of share their instance because of confidentiality. So we had a little clip of how it works, but we can't get the audio to work. And because it is, for the visually impaired, a lot of it is audio. So I greatly apologize for that. We are going to send out the link to so you can see how it works in our follow-up email along with the recording of the webinar. So be on the lookout for that resource. But just to give you a little bit of background of how the feature works, Android already has a talkback feature for screen reading. So instead of recreating anything from scratch, we took advantage of that talkback feature and got it to work with our TaroWorks mobile app screens. So some of the functions are that links, buttons, labels will announce their names when clicked. So it is sort of an audio there. There's a larger font size. We improve the descriptions of our pages so that it's easier to navigate for someone who's listening to the instructions. And all of this was included in addition to other features in our 6.4 release back in 2021. Okay, and at that point, then it became available to everybody, including BRAC. So as sort of the follow-up question back to Najiat, once that feature was launched in 2021, how did BRAC initially test it? Oops, Najiat, if you're speaking, you might be on mute.
Oh, yes, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah. So once TaroWorks supported the Android Talkback feature, BRAC started to pilot the new functionality. Our goal for this project included implementing the new feature for real-time data collection, of course, reducing the workload for the frontline staff, and increasing operational efficiency by providing data intelligence support. So the voices from the field was the features of app supported us to complete the survey, which was not possible in the past. However, we need more support for the dashboard segment, especially to narrate the insights from the data. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so that was the testing, and how did you scale this up?
While scaling up, we did not want to reinvent the wheels. There are plenty of solutions out there, and we wanted to leverage existing technology, which allowed us to go beyond simple data collection and track our program beneficiaries. So our lessons was, one was communication is the key, and the second was hierarchy matters. So following these lessons, we started from January 2021. So then we have done market research, speaking with different companies and organizations where we talked with TaroWorks, gathering fields, reporting needs, presenting to senior director and ICT focals to get their buy-in. In the February, backend design was commencement. We were trying to hit DIG Uganda's phase start. In March, the pilot launched in Uganda. So through March to till June, the pilot took time. And then in June, double work was still happening, which means the dual mechanism of collecting data was still happening. We were a support unit and don't run operations, nor was that ever our intention because the system has to be owned by management. So more involvement with country operation lead and to create the buy-in was the plan that time. So we began with to see data informed decision making happening. Introduction to negative reporting. Field management is about implementation and getting things done. They need to know what is missing and figuring out all the red flags. So till November, the operations were figuring things out, and then on November, feasibility analysis in Bangladesh, considering a project design for the person with a disability whom will receive skills training and following job placement. So then through December 2021 to February 2022, we designed the project's backend and scaled up this product across Bangladesh. Yeah.
Great. So then at that point, it became sort of countrywide, which is great. Okay, so that's kind of scaling up within the program. Later on, were you able to use this for other programs at BRAC?
Yeah, so later on there was a scope of building this like the feature with TaroWorks in a program called Disability Inclusive Vocational Training and Youth Employment, which was in SDP, so this in skills development program, where young people in Bangladesh are like where the focus was the young people of Bangladesh were almost 3 times more likely to be unemployed than adults. And the situation is even tougher for young people living in disabilities. Considering BRAC's priority strategy, BRAC's Skills Development Program undertook a project for only people having disabilities. In this project, we scale up the same technical product to 60 branches across Bangladesh for disability inclusive vocational training and youth employment. The total number of participants with disabilities in the project was 1,170 and 85 staff were assigned to this project, some of whom have visual impairments. Participants having disabilities received apprenticeship-based training to 6 months and polling employment opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for this one, it'd be good to know now that it's been fully rolled out, what are staff able to do?
We have seen that at that point of time, staff doesn't need to create any report or there is no requirement for report submission, which saves an average of 3 hours of their daily work life. They can invest more time in the activities that are important for improving program quality. The staff can now make data-backed decisions. The frequency of seeing dashboards and reports has increased manifolds. Accountability and financial transparency have been more visible in those recent days. And also staff owns the product and they speak about the new requirements which they want to see in the product in like upcoming days. So which improve the product's robustness. Yeah.
This is great. As you're talking about the scaling up journey and how staff are being empowered, it's really impressive. Just sort of the scale that you're you've been able to achieve. And for us, or for me, I always say that, a successful implementation is only partly because of the technology, but the other half is really having a really good way of rolling out and getting the team to fully adopt that technology. So you've taken this tool, piloted it successfully, scaled it across all of Bangladesh successfully. How did you achieve these results from an adoption point of view?
In like adoption point of view, there comes our design principles that we adopted throughout the scale-up journey. So one was design for the end user. It's very important because the priority was never to serve a donor. They focused on finding a tool and designing forms with the field end users skills in mind. After all, if data lies in the field, they need to design for the field. The second design principle was, if you see that it's be rapid, be scrappy, by which we meant like we didn't want to start piloting at the very beginning of a new apprentice cohort, making timing very tight. They organized that that you don't need the perfect product to deploy, but rather a minimum viable product. Then, as you get feedback from users, even you get with the flow, you continue to iterate and improve. And the third principle was be embedded with operations, which is very important to to get the ownership. You have to like work very close with operations, get to know the realities on the ground, and make sure the technology complements day-to-day operations.
Great, that's so important. Thank you. Okay, so at this point, you have the right tool and you've designed the processes in a way so that people have adopted it, the actual end users. What were the impacts and results? Or sorry, what were the results and impacts on your users?
Yeah, so I'll explain the impacts first. So the impacts to the mobile users were to visually impaired mobile users using TaroWorks with TalkBack, like employment numbers, personal benefits, benefits of being able to use mobile technology, etc. The second was data guides frontline staff to make decisions based on the data and experience. And then all the project components are digitalized, reducing the approval process time, dependency, and decentralized decision making. So actually noticed. And then about the results in the next slide. Can you just go to yeah, thanks. So the results from BRAC skills development program was reduce the dropout of persons with disabilities to 0 after we incorporate machine learning into the project, into the process, I mean, and then scale up the product across Bangladesh. There are 973 field staff in the last year who are using the product, serving 500,000 beneficiaries. The second was increase operational efficiency by up to 15%. Management being able to see data in Salesforce dashboard and make data-driven decisions, both operational and strategic, as data being real-time. And then almost 500,000 user data is in the SDP system, having an average of 1273 data point. More and more data is coming, you see, which leads to running machine learning or any sophisticated analysis time to time. Yeah.
Great. Let me actually follow up on one of your points there. Gabriella, if you could just go back to the previous slide. You mentioned increasing operational efficiency up to 15%. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so data being real time, so when they see the reports, they can see which areas they need to be more focused on, where they should visit more often, and these efficiencies are because of the data being real time. They're checking up the reports and can take the decisions in the head HO, and they can just move to the areas that are really needed to be visited or focused on, rather than the areas which are doing fine. So they know where to focus and when to focus. These decisions are making operations efficient day by day. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. And then sort of on that last note, I'd be very interested to hear maybe in a subsequent webinar about the machine learning and how you're using all of that data you have. But that also does sort of lead us into the next question, which is kind of going back to BRAC's data-driven approach. You've been pioneers in using data for continuous improvement. And you've also talked a little bit about this in your design principles as well, with kind of using an MVP, a minimum viable product, and continuing to improve on it. So I guess, what have you learned and how are you continuing to evolve your programs using data?
Yeah, so in the next slide, I have mentioned some points that that how BRAC is using field data for continuous improvement. So the first point is optimizing learner placement. The Skills Development Program has a mandate to recruit learners with disabilities for apprenticeships, but the challenge was finding the right mastercrafts person to train and mentor these program participants with special needs. Using its digitally collected data on learners and business mentors who trained them, BRAC ran an artificial neural network analysis to identify the type of trainer who would work best with this segment of the learner population. It turned out that business owners with 8 or more years of business experience who had reached a particular level in their own education and had trained at least 7 prior apprentices were an ideal match for learners with disabilities. The second one was gauging learner progress. Program organizers needed to assess the progress of learners they brought into the apprenticeship program, but the organizers didn't have a trainer's subject expertise with which to gauge learner performance. So then BRAC created guidance in its mobile app, which characterized, for example, the correct way to cut a garment for people being trained as tailor apprentices. Program organizers then watched the apprentice at work and gave them a grade in the app by app women, TaroWorks, and then based on how their work compared to the outline standard. This methodology gave BRAC insight into which learners might be falling behind in their training and would benefit from additional support. BRAC will now be able to triangulate this information with our placement information to see how well our curriculum is enabling our learners to get higher paid.
Oh, did we lose you? Not yet? technical difficulties. Let's wait for her a few minutes to see if she'll come back on.
Hi, am I audible? I think I might have lost connection for a few
Yes,
seconds.
we can hear you.
Yeah.
Welcome
All
back.
right. Yeah, there's a network issue. Yeah. So where was I? I was explaining the third point of continuous improvement. So yeah, comparing 2017 to 2018 data, BRAC spotted a significant drop in the amount of information of being edited by field managers using a mobile survey to help select learners for the apprenticeship program. Upon further investigation, BRAC discovered the managers were not doing enough independent validation of prior work done by the program organizers to evaluate and recommend candidates for the skills development program. BRAC then asked managers to provide a digital signature assisting that they're done with the validation, which in turn increased recorded editing time. As a check against those results, BRAC tweaked the survey further by using the term approval rather than selection when asking managers to sign off on the learner candidate picked by their subordinate. All these validation surveys were designed through TaroWorks as well. And as a result, survey editing time decreased but was still higher than first measured, indicating managers were focusing more attention on validation, thereby advancing continuous improvement efforts. Throughout the whole journey, we actually built the systems in TaroWorks, and this helped us through the continuous improvement and changing the behaviors. Yeah. So in the next slide, I would explain how mobile technology pilot program completed and what were the lesson learned throughout this continuous improvement. So the first lesson was designed for the field, not for the donor. So BRAC held a design workshop with field teams to elicit suggestions for new product features and functionality that would meet their needs. Then rather than aim for perfection, versions of BRAC's TaroWorks data collection forms and other features or functionality were rolled out as if they were minimum viable products, allowing the organization to win the trust of field staff by making changes as feedback came in from users. The second one was be embedded with field operations. At first, we decided to read the operational manual and build our data model accordingly. But then who came to realize that there is the operation model and then there is the reality, you know. So while we design a model that actually when we run into the field, we see the reality is quite different than the design. For example, field surveys they thought would be done sequentially as outlined in the operations manual were actually conducted simultaneously in real-world conditions. And insight gained from observing work in the field. So the third point that we noticed that's very major learning was, you know, the technology is the easy part. It didn't take long to learn how to build a data collection and analysis system or to use Salesforce and TaroWorks. The hardest part of the process was behavioral change, or getting people to accept and trust in a system, which shifted their efforts from a paper-based approach to a digital platform, So, and the third learning that's also like the most important one is we have to be patient. Behavioral change takes time. So regional managers of skills development program who had been working for BRAC for more than till now it's like 30 years had not touched a smartphone or a laptop when they were asked to use mobile and cloud-based technology. But now with training, those same people are building out customized reports in Salesforce, having developed a sense of ownership, and very confident about this. Yeah. So these are the lessons we think we have learned throughout the journey.
Thank you so much for that, Najiat. I think that's really important and great examples. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, I think that is the end of my regular questions. If you have any questions, please submit them to the questions section. It should be in the GoToWebinar sort of pop-out window if you see it. And let's see. I see actually a question or a hand raised. You can also raise your hand and we can unmute you. So I see that Lamidia Lasisi, you've raised your hand. Let me unmute you in case you're still there. So I've unmuted you if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question. Or you can also type it in. Okay, I'm not getting a response there. Let me mute them. And then now I see a question from Abdul. So let me unmute you. Abdul, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that was a nice presentation. I'm Shatar. I work with ID Global. I think my question is that I want to see the one she demonstrated was for visually impaired. How were they able to use the technology to record information from people who are not visually impaired but have difficulty in listening or have difficulty in talking or other form of disability, or they say we shouldn't say disability, other form of inabilities, but not necessarily visually impaired? I don't know what my question is.
Great, thank you, Abdul. So Nadia, did you hear the question? Or I can maybe repeat it. What I heard was that this was mostly about working with visually impaired users. Have you used the technology with other users with different impairments?
Yeah, so the other users who had different impairments was maybe slightly hearing disabilities, or like mostly like hearing disabilities, or the other disabilities that were included there, they were completely fine to see the surveys, so they didn't needed any other feature to tag in, so they could actually put the inputs or with that. So we didn't needed a special feature for the other staffs with disabilities. But this was a very special case that that was a challenge with the people, staff having visual impairment. That's when we had to think of some feature that might include them using the system. If I may, I might have answered your concern. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Najiat. Abdul, if you have any follow-up questions, you can ask them in the questions section. Let's see. Maybe a question, how do mobile users use TaroWorks on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, so we have different layers of staff. So the first layer of the staff is program organizers, who actually visits door to door and collects, reaches the learners that might be interested to our projects or like a specific project. So they visit the learner's household and take their information and put it into TaroWorks, and then when they complete the survey from their end, so the selection survey begins, where the program organizers first compare the selection criteria for the specific projects, and if that matches with the learners they have reached out to, they start sorting out with the process, and they put their selection through a survey, and then their supervisors, who are the area managers, put selection based on the first selection from the program organizers. And then when the learners are selected and our training starts, after that the skill test comes where the program organizers test out the learners have gathered certain skills from the trainers they have been trained with, and then if they pass the competency, then the program organizers put the assessment surveys, put their information in the assessment survey in which skills they have passed, what are the markings that they have got, and then finally is he or she competent or not. And based on that, after that, our employment officers start engaging with the market, and then putting the linkage between the competent learners that have graduated from our projects, and then place them into the market. And once they place them into the market, they put the job placement survey information where they have placed the learners at what designation, what is the salary, and these are the stuff. So the overall process is done by step into TaroWorks surveys, with which the management can see every day's work that have been done with different layers, and they can see in like in Dhaka region how many learners have been graduated in this month, and then how many learners we have reached, how many learners we have placed, and which region is doing great, which needs more attention. These are the everyday process. Yeah.
Great. Sounds like a lot of people interacting with each other, which is what we love to see. Okay, a final question from Eunice. Was there any priority work with women and youth with disabilities, and what were the results?
Okay, so priority work with women and people with disabilities is firstly during in case of women, there is a social barrier that their family might not really want them to like participate in a program, or this there are barriers while you want to engage women into the system. So for that, it's always our staff go to the house and talk to their like husbands, or if they're their father, someone who is the guardian of the house, so that they tells them how the women can participate, and how can they also be a part of the family's economic condition, and how they actually have to like ensure how safety matters in BRAC. After like all this sensitization and throughout the process, they're like convincing their families and as well. These are the pre-process before engaging them into the system. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. I think we're over, so we'll make that the last question. So thank you, Najiat, so much for sharing your story. You went really deep into it, so really appreciate all of the detail you've given us, and also for joining us so late in your day. We really appreciate your time and for sharing. And thank you to the audience for participating. Hopefully see the last screen. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, we'll be following up with the recording. Feel free to interact with us if you need more information. Thank you all.